Whether on water or in the air, the mission of the United States Navy is to defend our nation with combat-ready naval forces. For helicopter and fighter jet squadrons home ported in the mid-Atlantic, the Longshore Naval Ordnance Area is an essential strike warfare training range. Here, aircrews conduct bombing and gunnery training exercises against a simulated enemy target, a decommissioned barge that rests partially submerged in the shallows of North Carolina's Pamlico Sound. Beyond the borders of the small training range, the largest sound on the East Coast bustles with activity from fishing, tourism, and wildlife.
As the commanding officer, probably the largest challenge that I face is maintaining the right balance between the operational requirements of the airspace and sea space training ranges that I have against the interests of the community and the taxpayers. Maintaining that balance, ensuring that while we need to operate and do the mission that we have to do, that we're always taking care to be good stewards of that airspace, of that water space, and be good neighbors to those that allow us to train and be ready for war.
There's not just one particular way that the Pamlico Sound's in use. Local watermen that fish off these lands and have done it for generations. Kayaking, sailing, ecotourism, recreational sports fishermen, visitors that come down just to look for a nice vista.
Use of the Sound for recreational and commercial purposes dates back to the late 1800s, when oyster harvesting became the backbone of the region's economy and cultural heritage. Over time, over-harvesting with destructive fishing gear, shoreline development, and pollution depleted Pamlico Sound's once plentiful oyster habitat.
The oyster reefs have been historically one of the habitats that's lost the most in the Sound.
Old maps in North Carolina showed very significant oyster reefs throughout the Pamlico Sound. Those do not exist anymore.
Free-swimming oyster larvae require availability of hard habitat to settle and grow. Settled oysters filter algae and contaminants, improving water quality as they feed. The loss of oyster habitat has affected the entire ecosystem, from reduced water clarity to lessened wildlife habitat to reduced ability to protect shorelines from wave energy and storm surge during hurricanes.
Oyster reefs in general provide a lot of habitat for a lot of different species.
The reefs create their own little world. The clearer the water is, the better the grass beds, the more grass beds there are for the juvenile fish and shrimp to grow up in. Without the oysters, you don't get the water clarity, you don't get the habitat. Oysters are a piece of the puzzle. They're the kind of the building block.
In 2003, a Category 2 hurricane barreled through Pamlico Sound. High winds, rain, and storm surge devastated the natural environment and destroyed homes, buildings, and other structures, including the Navy's Longshore barge target.
The range was closed following Hurricane Isabel, which came through, made landfall about 15 miles south of the range and destroyed the target that was there. We lost a huge resource when that happened. We lost capacity and the ability to train our aviators.
Shift area 5313 Alpha is where we're going to find our threat representative target.
With training capacity lost, the Navy had a critical need to replace the target.
There is oyster reefs being built along the littoral area, so we'll primarily be conducting our run-ins from the southwest.
As required by environmental laws, the Navy conducted an environmental assessment to analyze potential impacts of sinking a new barge target and resuming training on the range. The assessment determined that these activities would disturb the range's sandy bottom habitat. In consultation with state and federal environmental agencies, the Navy saw an opportunity to not only offset range disturbances, but also provide a more substantial benefit to the Sound's entire ecosystem. The Navy partnered with the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries and the Nature Conservancy to create 5 acres of new oyster habitat 12 miles west of the training range.
This is a very important key location for North Carolina's Oyster Sanctuary Network, so it was very beneficial to us to be able to partner.
I think that having all 3 of these organizations working together has put together a good project in the water.
If you're going to do anything to improve the system, this is one of the best things you can do.
The Oyster Sanctuary is built by laying a series of 3,500-pound cement reef balls in a series of grid patterns on the Sound's sandy bottom. Reef balls are carefully stacked on the deck of the Division of Marine Fisheries barge and then taken out to their new home.
About as pretty a day as you're going to get from Mexico Sound.
We go to the Longshore Oyster Sanctuary site and we set a flag on the GPS coordinates, deploying the 22 units at 16 different degree marks, compass headings. And the units are deployed to give an even spread of material on the bottom.
The Navy deployed 900 reef balls, creating 5 acres of habitat in what is now called the Longshore Oyster Sanctuary.
Let her go.
The reef balls provide the hard surface needed for oyster settlement and in time will become the foundation of a thriving oyster reef. Scientific surveys will be conducted regularly to measure oyster growth within the sanctuary. Destructive fishing gear and overharvesting is prohibited within the sanctuaries.
When we dive on these reefs, we document everything we find.
The monitoring includes a series of square meter samples of the sanctuary surface to see just how well the reefs are developing over time.
I'm very pleased to actually work on projects like this that can hopefully, benefit not only, water quality efforts and keeping our estuarine thing, but also providing structure and habitat for finfish, allowing people to have the ability to fish off of these structures.
So not only do oysters provide the environmental, biological benefits, but they also help preserve the culture of coastal North Carolina and the commercial fishermen that depend on it.
I think what the Navy do is a really good thing, holding themselves to the same, if not a higher standard than the private sector, and it's good stewardship and it's a good example.
A new target barge is now moored within the Longshore Naval Ordnance Area. By using non-explosive ordnance and training at a safe distance from the new oyster reef, North Carolina has expanded its oyster sanctuary system, and the Navy's mission of maintaining combat readiness has begun again at the Longshore Range.
Preserving the Longshore Naval Ordnance Area and the resources that we have down there available to our pilots is a resource that we never want to lose. That there's a give and take involved with what we do and what we need in order to be able to do the job and the mission that we do. And I'm proud that we're able to give a little back to the community and to the environment.
The primary mission of the United States Navy is to man, train, and equip combat-ready naval forces, capable of winning wars, deterring aggression, and maintaining freedom of the seas. The Navy is committed to being a good steward of the sea while maintaining military readiness. Navy scientists and environmental planners support the Navy's mission and environmental commitments by preparing environmental planning documents, managing a comprehensive marine species monitoring program, and designing and executing numerous other environmental stewardship projects sponsored by the United States Fleet Forces Command.